test, test, test. Test, test, test. All right.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna get some fun. Oh, that was not the radio.
I know, I parked on the side there. We'll see how it goes. Sure, sure. Oh, that's fine. Oh, yeah, I do. Yeah, sure. Hi, sweetie. Hi, darling. Hi, babe. Oh. Good morning. Nice to see everyone. We all know what's coming today. I know. I can see the look on all your faces, like, just get this done so I can go home and prepare for what I need to prepare for. How many of you thought it might be over, that we might be headed towards spring? I know, I did too. And I love snow, but I am really sick of it this year. However, my husband just bought a brand new snow blower So he hates snow, but he was even excited this morning when I left. He goes, maybe it'll start snowing before you get home. And I said, well, not enough to use that. He goes, oh, you never know. He said, we might have green grass when you get home. So I don't think that'll be the case. Welcome to Channing Unitarian Universalist Church. It's a lovely place to be on a cold morning in February. I welcome all of you. If you look on the back of your order of service, I know you have many announcements there. And Rick, did you want to, any others that, you do, Julie, okay. You're Mike, okay. Hi, Mike. Hi. Here, you are.
Thanks. So just like she said, there's all the upcoming events are in here. I want to highlight a couple. Today, during coffee hour, the fundraising committee is having their planning meeting for the Chinese dinner. So anybody who wants to help out with that, find Aaron and Deb and Donna, and they'll tell you what we're going to be doing. We also are we've moved the once a month project night. We pushed it up a week to accommodate some schedules. So the next project night is going to be Tuesday, March 3rd, assuming the weather allows for that. So if you are willing and able to come out for an hour and give us some time and some tools, we're going to continue to work on fixing broken things and cleaning and organizing and all of that. And I just have to say, for the people that have been coming to that, I really appreciate it, especially you, Joel, because I make you do all the things. We've gotten a lot done this year having this, so I really appreciate everybody who comes out for that. We also have the day that we have the pajama party on the 8th is also going to be the seed swap day. So just a heads up, more info will be coming. And the coffee house is returning in March. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because it's still a ways out. But the week after that is also going to be the folk ballot singing competition. We are the new host venue for that. We're not putting it on. We're just providing the space. But I just wanted to get it out there because Karen and friends are trying to get the word out that it's moved. It's going to be here this year. But that will all be emailed. Are there any other announcements? Yes.
The music and worship meeting will be this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m., not 10 a.m. You can tell I copied and pasted from the church service. Anyone can attend, but encourage the committee members especially to attend.
Are there any other announcements? All right. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. I think we all know that last week or this past week was President's Week. Last weekend was President's Weekend. And it seemed an opportune moment to pay homage to a few of the women who have accompanied their men to the White House. Last year, I spoke of the many accomplishments of Abigail Adams at the Weymouth Church. And this spring over there, we will be welcoming a historian for an afternoon talk to learn more about her and her husband. Today, however, I have decided to talk about the lives of presidential wives who made an impact not only because they happened to have married a man who was later elected to be president of the United States, but also because they were direct and outspoken and accomplished in their own right. Often, what is said of a man is considered to be assertive, and the same words spoken by a woman are sometimes considered acerbic. Consider some of these quotes attributed to the three first ladies of whom I will speak today. A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong until it's in hot water. That was Eleanor Roosevelt. You never know what you can do until you have to do it. That's Betty Ford. If you don't get out there and define yourself, you'll be quickly and inaccurately defined by others. Michelle Obama. Being a lady does not require silence. Eleanor Roosevelt. Now I think it's one of the most useless questions an adult can ask a child. What do you want to be when you grow up? As if growing up is finite. As if at some point in your life you become something, and that's the end. The search for human freedom can never be complete without freedom for women. Betty Ford. Certainly, there have been other women who have served as first ladies who deserve admiration, and perhaps a few who do not. Let us all look forward to the day when we can quote the words of our first gentleman. With that said, we will do our chalice lighting. Rick, would you do that for us? As he does so, would you all please stand, and in unison, we will say our chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Would you join with me also in saying our affirmation? Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please join us in our first hymn, Singing the Living Tradition, number 121. We'll build a land. Please be seated. Kids, has anyone ever said to you, what are you going to be when you grow up? Do you know? No, I never knew either. And it depended, I still don't know. I know. Somebody said to me one day, were you always a minister? I said, no. And they said, what else did you do? I said, you name it, and I've done it. I was at a restaurant the other night, and someone in a table nearby was kind of being, I thought, rude and demeaning toward a person who was in the wait staff. And I thought, you know what? All you have to do is ever be a waitress. Anybody ever been a waiter or a waitress or a busboy or a washer of dishes? And okay. And you know, that'll tame you right there. And it'll make you a really good tipper. Okay, somebody has to practically poison my food before I don't tip 20%, because I know what that feels like. What do you think about when you grow up? Do you have any thought in your heads of what you might ever want to be? Blank looks, I love it. I love it. I don't know any reason why you should know what you want to do, because you know what you should be doing right now? Being a kid. There is nothing more fun if you're in a good and loving place than to be a kid. There's nothing more fun. I look at all your faces, and I remember being your age. I know that seems difficult to believe, but yes, even people who are old remember what it was like to be a kid, and it was a lot of fun. Do you still think of your age as something with a half or a quarter? Are you ever like 6.5 or 6.25? Yes, I remember that too. Do we all remember what that felt like when it mattered? It still matters. It's just, it matters in a different way. But when you were like 5, the thought that, well, next year I'll be 6. How many of you were 6? Anybody 6? 6 is good. Yeah, well, yeah. You were once. Yes, Rick. Some days I'm sure your wife thinks you still are 6. I get that. Yeah. And Rick is delusional, but that's okay. That's okay. We all delude ourselves from time to time. I think that it's a good thing to not know what you're going to be, because someday you'll figure it out, and you'll be lots of different things at lots of different times in your lives. But right now, it's your time to be a kid. I bet the women I'm going to talk about today never once thought as a child that they would become a wife of a president of the United States of America. Do you ever think about that? Look at your face, Dottie. She's going, no, that's never going to happen. No, I would never have thought that for myself. It didn't happen. Probably too late at this point, but I suppose it could be fun. I don't know. I can't even fathom that. But I suppose there are people who find themselves in all sorts of situations, who never dreamed that they would be in it, whether they're good situations or bad. So we never know what will evolve in our lives. We never, ever know. And for that, I am very grateful. I hope you have wonderful classes today, and I hope you have a no school day tomorrow, and also on Tuesday. I know your parents do not hope that, because they've been had you home for an entire week. Much as they love you, and they do, they want to see you go to school, because that way everyone stays happy and safe, right? So everybody should be going back to school. The gentleman seated back there, we were talking, he does plowing, right? For the town of Weymouth, for the schools. And he will be out there. So think about him tonight, tomorrow, okay? He'll be at school, and you guys will be out sledding. So I hope you have fun. And shall we sing them to their classes? Okay. And suddenly it's quiet in here. It's lovely, isn't it? Huh? Oh, my goodness. And now is the time for candles of joy and concern. It's a time for you to voice your thoughts. If you have something sad or disquieting on your mind, in your heart, in your soul, it is that time for you to share that if you would like. If it is something that is happy and joyful, we ask you to share that as well. If you just want to have a candle lit, you needn't say why or for what purpose. Somehow we will know, and we will be there for you.
Susan?
Another gentleman who had a stroke, she's getting kind of discouraged. She wants her life back. She's getting sad. Progress is kind of slow.
Jude? Susan?
Candy from my friend Lisa, and is suffering with ALS.
Vicki?
Candle for my family, who lost my uncle who passed away recently. So candle for them, and also joy for him for not suffering. Right? He was really ready for me. And candle joy for seeing family I haven't seen in forever. And one more candle for my same last workshop last weekend. Very awesome.
Yay.
Maddie?
Two candles, a candle of concern. So I, as boyfriend and Ben, had a close friend that lost their life unexpectedly. I don't know too much about it. For the sudden, a candle of joy, because I finally got to thank my neighbor. Candle of joy for good neighbors, because I threw out my back last storm, and I was feeling too embarrassed to ask for help, and he snowblowed my driveway without me asking. I had just canceled my nail, figuring I could just deal with it. So, yeah.
Diane?
Candle concern for my neighbor who lost his wife, Chris, recently she died. And he was the one with his Thompson.
Corey? Susan?
Candle of joy for the few days I spent with Jimmy and the kids at the New
I'll do a candle of joy. That's from my daughter, and she's going to be running in a marathon, her first marathon. She's done 13 half ones, and I called her on my way here, and she was on mile 7 today. So she's going to do 20 miles today, and she'll do that in April down in Newport. So she's very excited. And then I'm going to light another separate candle just for her. And she just found out this past week that she is a candidate to donate a kidney. And she is absolutely ecstatic. It's been something that's been on her mind for probably about a year and a half, and maybe more. In the interim, her husband tore his Achilles not once but twice, and some of it, she said, is in celebration that they haven't killed each other, because she was pretty close a couple of times. He threatened to go skiing because his doctor just gave him the okay. And she said, well, your next wife will have to take care of you if something like that happens. And I don't think she was kidding. But she's looking toward the beginning of June to be able to donate a kidney for someone. So I'm very proud of her, because that's really good if you can do that for somebody. So, and she got her final approval. So she'll be going through Brigham and Women's in Boston. And so that's just for Carrie, my daughter.
Yes, June?
Came up with my son, today's his birthday.
Ah.
I don't know. It's the storm of money into this one, but I wish him well. Have a beautiful.
Is there one more we can light?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for donating for the chocolate auction that we held at the UU Church in Weymouth. I have thank you notes for, because I keep Hallmark in cash, so I am known as the thank you note queen. But I send thanks. People say to me, "Why do you bother?" And I said, "Well, I bother because they bothered." So when people do something nice, I think people deserve to have that thanks right back. And it meant a lot to us. So any of you, a lot of the names I don't even recognize. So I really appreciate that. It was very, very kind. And we had a really good time.
And then I'll light one more for all those joys and concerns we carry with us and aren't ready to share.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. I know sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I see on people's faces they're ready to say something, or they think they are. And as soon as they open their mouths, I can tell it is something from their heart, because sometimes people's eyes will mist up, their voice will quaver. And I know that means that it's something that means a great deal to that person. I know there are sorrows out there, and we carry them. They're on our backs, they're on our shoulders. We get headaches, they're right in our heads. They're in our hearts. They're in our souls. They are so deep sometimes. It's sorrow for missing someone who has passed on. Sometimes it's joy that that person has finally passed on. Sometimes living can be so difficult that there is release in not being here anymore. I want to thank everyone for taking those moments to speak of whatever it is in your hearts. Now is the time for us to just, I'd say, snuggle into these chairs, but they're not the snuggliest, but see if you can wiggle your butts into them and make yourselves comfy. Take a few moments in prayer and or meditation. Gather your thoughts. Consider the candles that have been lit this morning. They are parts of someone. Someone had to share. And that's a big thing. So remember what people have said. Think also of your own sorrows, but also always think of the joys that we have. One being that we are all here together this morning. That is a gift to see everyone and to be here with everyone. This place matters. After a few moments, we will sing together Spirit of Life. Number 123. And now is our time for offering for the Channing Church, our community services, our ministries, and something as mundane as our utility bills. Please give often and freely. Would you please stand, and together we will sing our dedication of gifts?
Spirit of truth, of life, of power, we bring ourselves as gifts to thee. Oh, bind our hearts this sacred hour, in faith and hope and charity. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you for your kindness and generosity. And thanks for that little winter rendition. When COVID began, my husband and I watched more TV than we ever had in our lives. Not that we didn't watch plenty of it before COVID, because we did. But during that time in our lives, and I know I was not alone, we all binged. I still like to watch TV, although I try hard not to watch junk, although I'm sure I watch my share of it. In our defense, we really do watch tons of shows on PBS, mostly nature shows, Nova, This Old House, and of course, political stuff. To be honest, my husband watches a whole lot more TV than I do. He really will watch just about anything. On Saturday mornings, he used to watch reruns of The Three Stooges. The other day, I caught him watching Mr. Ed. Any of you old enough to remember Mr. Ed, the talking horse? Stupidest thing in the world. See, I know. I'm not saying I don't know some of the episodes. I do. I do. And I'm a Seinfeld queen. I know all the lines. But when I tell you he would watch anything, he really would. And he had loved The Sons of Anarchy. A little too violent for me. Sometimes we'll catch a movie together on TV, and if the Sox are on in the summer, I'm definitely watching them. Right now, of course, it's a lot of Olympics, and today is the last day for that. And they just tied it Canada. So right now, we're 1-1 and just about to go into the third period. Not that I care, but just throwing it out. One program that we both really enjoyed watching a few years ago was a real gem. I'd seen it advertised on Showtime, and I thought it looked interesting, but I wasn't sure that my husband would like it. As it turned out, I was wrong. He did. The First Ladies, starring Viola Davis as Michelle Obama, Michelle Pfeiffer as Betty Ford. And when I heard that, I thought, Michelle Pfeiffer as Betty Ford? She was awesome. And is it Gillian or Gillian Anderson? Anybody know? Okay, it's either one then. It's I don't know. It's one of them. And she played Eleanor Roosevelt. And it was worth every second of my time. This series delves into the personal and political lives of these three famous women, exploring everything from their early lives as young women to their family life with their more famous husbands and the impact that politics in Washington in particular had on their lives. We all know bits and pieces about each of these women, but it has usually been shown to us piecemeal and out of context. We've been told of Eleanor's outspokenness and frankness, of Betty's addictions, and of Michelle's feuds with Washington insiders who tried to squash her ambitions. But honestly, what do we really know about these very different, yet somehow very similar women? Not much, as it turns out. Eleanor Roosevelt was, as I like to say, a woman before her time. That she came from money and connection cannot be disputed, but she strove all of her life to rise above and beyond those constraints. She abhorred the pampered life in which she had been reared, and she fought diligently to connect with real people and real problems. Often, she could be found giving speeches in support of gender and racial equality, and a time when doing so was not only uncommon, but often dangerous. Definitely, it was considered unladylike to engage thus, and officials in her husband's White House crew were less than overjoyed when she did so. Eleanor even came under scrutiny by no other than J. Edgar Hoover, the reigning director of the FBI, when he uncovered her alleged lesbian affair with a Washington correspondent. When her husband was presented with this information in a threat by Hoover that such an affair could and probably would result in blackmail, Roosevelt was surprised and saddened after viewing the explicit photographs. That he loved his wife and he was not in dispute and never had been. But their marriage was often one of respect and intellectual discussions rather than passion or physical love. Dalliances by sitting presidents was nothing unusual and usually overlooked with a wink and a nod. But a first lady having an affair with another woman was beyond the pale. As I watched this series, I could easily see how Eleanor could be attracted to the correspondent and how a love affair could commence. But more than that, I liked how she was unwilling to give her up. Franklin, her husband, did not ask her to do so, which I also liked, but simply to be discreet. He seemed to understand that she needed more than he in so many ways than he could provide, and she understood that also, and was willing to sacrifice some of her prior closeness with Franklin that she had enjoyed. Anna Eleanor Roosevelt was born on October 11th, 1884, in Manhattan, New York, to socialites Anna Rebecca Hall and Elliott Roosevelt. From an early age, she loved to go by her middle name. She was a niece of President Theodore Roosevelt, and she adored his company. At only 2 years old, Eleanor was traveling on the SS Britannic with her father when the ship collided with another liner, and Eleanor and her father had to be lowered to lifeboats to preserve their lives. At 8, she lost her mother to diphtheria, and one of her younger brothers, Elliot, died less than a year later. 2 years after that, her father died in an asylum for the alcoholically addicted, leaving Eleanor an orphan and prone to bouts of depression for the remainder of her life. Before his death, Eleanor's father made Eleanor swear that she would always care for her remaining brother, Hal, and she took that responsibility very seriously. As a child, Eleanor's mother often referred to Eleanor as Granny, a comment on her daughter's serious and stoic nature. And after her parents died, Eleanor was raised by her maternal grandmother, who often called her the ugly duckling of the family. Any other child might have given up on life completely given these circumstances, but at only 14, Eleanor wrote sagely in her diary that no matter how plain a woman may be, if truth and loyalty are stamped upon her face, all will be attracted to her. Despite the lack of physical beauty, Eleanor shone at her private school in London and became fluent in French, excelling as a student and a leader. Unfortunately, before she could complete her studies at the Wimbledon School in Allenwood, she was called back home to New York to make her social debut into New York's Gilded Society as a debutante. Of her coming out party, Eleanor later wrote, "It was simply awful. It was a beautiful party, of course, but I was so unhappy because a girl who comes out is so utterly miserable if she doesn't know the other young people. Of course, I had been so long abroad that I'd lost touch with all the girls I used to know in New York. I was miserable through the entire thing." I wonder if Eleanor was miserable because her coming out party was not one that's celebrated today for other reasons. But being openly bisexual or a lesbian was not an option for young women in the early 1900s, and certainly not among the socially elite. In 1902, Eleanor ran into her father's first cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, whom she'd met in her younger years at a family gathering. They struck up a conversation and later corresponded at length. A romance commenced, and a year later the couple was engaged, much to Franklin's mother's chagrin. Sarah, Eleanor's soon-to-be mother-in-law, felt that Eleanor was not the right wife for her beloved son, and she let this fact be known often and loudly to not only her son, but also to his betrothed. And in early 1905, Eleanor and Franklin were married in a lavish ceremony, although Sarah, Franklin's mother, had tried desperately to prevent the marriage from ever happening. She had arranged a whirlwind trip around the world for herself and her beloved son just prior to his marriage in a last-ditch effort to prevent the union, but Franklin would not budge. After their wedding, the couple spent months in Europe, as was the fashion for the rich and famous at the time, and then returned to New York in a residence there as well as in Hyde Park, New York. Eleanor had little say in how either home was run, as the townhouse in the city was actually attached to her mother-in-law's residence, and the Hyde Park house had been lavishly and, to Eleanor's thoughts, horribly outfitted by Franklin's mother while they were away on their honeymoon in Europe. Although together, she and Franklin had 6 children, even Franklin eventually realized that his mother took most of the control of them, leaving Eleanor to feel adrift and useless in her own homes. Her eldest son, James, remembered Sarah telling her grandchildren, "Your mother only bore you. I am more your mother than your mother is." Eleanor disliked having sex with her husband and once confided to her daughter Anna that it was an ordeal to be born. She also considered herself ill-suited to motherhood, later writing, "It did not come naturally to me to understand little children or to enjoy them." It was in September 1918, as Eleanor was unpacking one of Franklin's suitcases, that she discovered a bundle of love letters to him from her social secretary, Lucy Mercer, and that her husband had been contemplating leaving his wife for Mercer. However, following pressure from his political advisor, Louis Howe, and of course from his mother, Sarah, who threatened to disinherit Franklin if he followed through with a divorce, Eleanor and Franklin remained married. Their union from that point became more of a political partnership than a true marriage. Disillusioned with her marriage, Eleanor Roosevelt threw herself into public life and focused increasingly on her social work rather than on her role as a wife. In 1921, while on a summer break in New Brunswick from the White House, Franklin was stricken with polio. Despite Sarah's pleadings for her son to resign from office and get out of public view, he decided to listen to his wife's suggestion that he remain. Crediting Eleanor for her stamina and constant companionship for his recovery, Roosevelt's doctor stated, "You have been a rare wife, Eleanor, and have borne your heavy burden most bravely." Despite her mother-in-law's constant meddling, Eleanor supported her husband's policies and he hers. Their marriage was unconventional, to say the least, but somehow it worked on many levels for both of them. In the 30s, Eleanor Roosevelt established a very close relationship with aviator Amelia Earhart, and the press occasionally insinuated that a lesbian liaison existed between the two, but no confirmation was ever found. It was with AP reporter Lorena Hickok, who covered Eleanor during the last months of the presidential campaign, that Eleanor established a lifelong, ongoing love affair. During this period, Eleanor wrote daily 10 to 15-page letters to Hick, who was planning to write a biography on the First Lady. The letters included such endearments as, "I want to put my arms around you and kiss you at the corner of your mouth. And I can't kiss you, so I kiss your picture good night and good morning." At Franklin's 1933 inauguration, Eleanor wore a sapphire ring that Hickok had given her. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover despised FDR's liberalism and Eleanor's stance regarding civil rights, and he maintained a large file on both of the Roosevelts, with which Hoover intended to blackmail them if necessary. Compromised as a reporter because of this report, Hickok soon resigned her position with the AP to be closer to her lover, Eleanor, who secured her a job as an investigator for one of the New Deal programs. Throughout her life, Eleanor was a woman of substance who fulfilled her duties as a wife, mother, and first lady, yet somehow managed to search for and establish her own identity. Certainly, being something other than completely straight, or at least appearing so, was not to be tolerated in either New York or Washington societies when the Roosevelts reigned. But Eleanor found a way to not only speak her mind, but to do so with conviction and dignity. I was too young to remember much about Eleanor Roosevelt, and I've only come to admire and then celebrate her in the recent past. But Betty Ford, I do recall. I remembered that she had been a model and an accomplished dancer, that she was First Lady to Gerald Ford, and that she had breast cancer while in the White House, and consumed a little too much alcohol often. But I knew little else about her. Born Elizabeth Ann Bloomer in April of 1918, she was one of 3 children, and the only daughter born to William and Hortense. She was an actor and a writer, a mother and a wife, a daughter and a feminist, as well as a divorcee, a battered woman, a drunk, and a survivor of breast cancer, all at a time when being many of these was considered verboten, and certainly not characteristics of a decent First Lady. At only 16, Betty lost her father. He was found in the family garage where he'd fallen prey to carbon monoxide poisoning. But whether the death was accidental or on purpose was never fully decided. Regardless, her mother immediately had to find a job because the insurance company did not pay out any funds on her father's policy. It was at this point in Betty's life that she began to understand the need for reform regarding equal pay for women and equal job opportunities. At 18, after graduation from high school in Grand Rapids, Michigan, Betty went to New York to pursue her passion for dancing and acting. Her mother saw little promise in this career and urged Betty to return home to pursue a career as a secretary. Betty agreed, with the stipulation that she could go back to New York in 6 months if she decided that Grand Rapids was not to her liking. During that time, Betty met and married her first husband, William Warren, who turned out to be an alcoholic and a brittle diabetic. Which one or both caused it, no one was certain, but William fell into a coma from which he never fully recovered and through which Betty nursed him for 2 years at the home of her in-laws, despite her intentions to divorce him before he took ill. Betty worked 2 and sometimes 3 jobs during this time to help support her husband and his parents, enduring verbal and physical abuse from her recovering husband. In September of 1947, William and Betty finally divorced. In 1948, Betty met Gerald Ford, a handsome lawyer and World War II veteran, and they married later that year. Together they had 4 children, and the couple eventually became residents of the White House after Ford being vice president and following Richard Nixon's resignation in disgrace. In later years, Betty came to realize that not only did her brother suffer from alcoholism, but also that her father probably had also. Due to a neck and shoulder injury early in her life, Betty learned at a young age how to deal with chronic pain, and it was no surprise to her as she aged that solution came in the form of alcohol and pills. Her husband's schedule was demanding and grueling, often taking him away from home for weeks at a time, leaving Betty alone with the kids and a bottle of wine. Cocktails before dinner were a common thing in the 60s and 70s, so drinking a little earlier in the day could often go unnoticed, especially if you were vivacious, pretty, and outgoing, all of which Betty was. Bless you. After Watergate and Nixon's resignation, when Gerald Ford assumed the presidency, reporters speculated on what kind of First Lady Betty Ford would be, as they thought her predecessor, Pat Nixon, to be the most disciplined and composed First Lady in history. Mrs. Ford's impact on American culture is considered by many to be far wider and more lasting than that of her husband, who served a mere 896 days, much of it spent trying to restore the dignity of the office of the president after Nixon. She was regarded to be the most politically outspoken First Lady since Eleanor Roosevelt, an observation she relished. Active in social policy, Betty Ford broke new ground as a politically active presidential spouse, a position not always accepted and seldom liked by Ford's advisors. When Time magazine named its Person of the Year, the magazine profiled President Ford's wife as one of 11 women selected to represent American women. Personal recognition, however, did nothing to allay Betty Ford's fear of public speaking, nor her dislike for political life. In 1974, just weeks after Betty Ford became First Lady, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent a radical mastectomy. Her personal advisor and many in the president's staff advised her to remain silent on the issue, as they felt it was an embarrassment to her husband and the position of First Lady to even discuss her diagnosis, let alone be vocal regarding mammograms for women. She had already alienated many conservatives in Washington and across the nation with her stance on abortion, now, and the Equal Rights Amendment, and speaking openly about cancer, especially breast cancer, was definitely considered unladylike. Following her radical mastectomy, mammograms for women in America and worldwide increased 30-fold. When asked why she decided to be public about her diagnosis and treatment, Betty Ford replied, "When other women have this same operation, it doesn't make any headlines. But the fact that I was the wife of the president put it in headlines and brought before the public this particular experience that I was going through. It made a lot of women realize that it could happen to them. I'm sure I've saved at least one person, maybe more." In 1982, the Betty Ford Clinic was established, a direct response to her lifelong addiction to alcohol and prescription painkillers. Ford had suffered from a dependency on prescription medication and from alcohol prior even to her husband's presidency. Ford took doses of this medication in excess of her prescription, and in her 1987 memoir, she reflected on these addictions, writing, "I liked alcohol. It made me feel warm, and I loved pills. They took away my tension and my pain." The fact that Betty Ford had for years been given tranquilizers to treat a pinched nerve in her neck was public knowledge as far back as her time as second lady. Prescribing Valium for women instead of treating the problem with physical therapy or other methods was common then, as was often believed that the pain, at least for women, was usually in their heads. During her time as First Lady, there had been some speculation about substance abuse by friends and members of the press who observed occasional slurred speech from her. But after they left the White House, her addictions became more evident to her family and appeared life-threatening. In 1978, her family staged an intervention, which forced her to acknowledge the negative impact that her addiction was having on her health and family relationships. She agreed that day to detox from her medicine. As she had previously been with her breast cancer diagnosis and treatment, Betty was transparent with the public about her addictions and admittance to rehab. Ford's openness was praised by experts who predicted that it would make a major and positive impact. The week she entered a hospital, for rehabilitation, Betty Ford disclosed her addiction to prescription medication, and days later, she further noted that she'd come to realize that she too was an alcoholic. And in her statement, Betty said, "I have found that I am not only addicted to the medication I've been taking for my arthritis, but also to alcohol. I expect this treatment and fellowship to be a solution to my problems." In her memoir in 1978, she discussed her battle with addiction. And she said, "These past 6 years have been the best years of my life from the standpoint of feeling healthier and feeling more comfortable with myself." The third First Lady showcased in the television series was Michelle LaVaughn Robinson, who was born January 17, 1964, in Chicago's South Side. Her parents, Marion and Fraser, lived in a small bungalow in working-class Chicago, where her father was employed as a city pump operator and Democratic precinct captain. He suffered from MS most of his life, later becoming quite disabled and eventually dying of the disease. Michelle's mother stayed home with her children until they reached high school. Michelle loved and excelled at school, attending Princeton after graduating from high school, despite her guidance counselor's admonition that perhaps she was not Princeton material. Later, yes, thank you. Later, she went to Harvard Law, graduating with her law degree in 1985. She first worked in corporate law, but after her father died in 1991, she switched her focus to the public sector, but not before meeting Barack Obama when he interned at her firm for a summer. They married in 1992 and had 2 daughters, Malia and Tasha, better known as Sasha. As her husband rose in the political field, Michelle advanced in her career also, moving from a law firm to a position as Dean of Students at the University of Chicago, and later serving as Executive Director of Community and External Affairs at University of Chicago Hospitals. When her husband was elected to the U.S. Senate, Michelle chose to remain in Chicago with her girls in an attempt to eschew Washington life and to keep herself and her daughters grounded and protected. It was not until Barack became a candidate for president that she acquiesced and finally moved to Washington. When he became president, Michelle and her husband walked down Pennsylvania Avenue with their daughters, proud to be the first family of color to reside in the White House. While serving as First Lady, Michelle went on to head several campaigns while her husband was in office, including that of Let's Move, an endeavor to fight childhood obesity, and the Reach Higher initiative, which endeavored to enlighten students about possible careers and how to achieve their goals despite poverty, race, or other circumstances. She was also instrumental in writing and presenting her husband's health care initiative, commonly known as Obamacare. Like her predecessors, Eleanor Roosevelt and Betty Ford, Michelle often found herself applauded on one hand and detested on the other by the American public. Being pretty and accomplished were assets to being a first lady, as Eleanor, of course, knew full well. But being smart and funny, outspoken and deliberate were not always revered as such. These three first ladies were no retiring wallflowers. They were women who espoused values and ideas long before such were accepted or sometimes even considered, as when Eleanor Roosevelt fought valiantly, not violently, she was valiant, for equal rights for, quote, colored persons, unquote. Or Betty Ford spoke up and spoke out about equal rights for women and addressed breast cancer head on. It was Michelle who urged her husband, the President of the United States, to speak candidly about race and prejudice in this country in an address to the American public, and who fought valiantly for affordable health care for all. These brave and smart women may have served merely as first ladies, and bright as they were, forward-thinking and accomplished as they were, and witty and knowledgeable as they were, they did grace the White House not just as a partner to a president, but rather, hopefully, someday we will see one as the first female president of the United States of America. Many of us hoped to see this come to fruition during the last presidential election, but alas, this was not to be. Whoever that first successful female candidate may be, she will definitely be a true first lady. Amen. And now is our closing song. Would you stand as you are able and sing with us hymn number 1, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. as we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, or the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May your week be filled with joy, with fun, with shoveling, I'm sorry to say. And may there be anticipation for spring once again. Amen. Thank you, Maddie, as always.